And good morning and welcome everybody. Welcome everybody, regardless of where you are in the world. And it is a good morning here. It is 7 o'clock here in the far north Queensland. This is the name of the region where I'm living currently, and I have been for about 25 years. So I'm considered a local. I'm a very familiar with this whole area. And it has already been a beautiful morning, very hot. It's going to be a very, very hot summer this year, it looks like. Well, it already is summer outside. It's been a beautiful sunrise, and the birds have already been very loud and have been singing for hours and hours and hours in the morning. And this is the thing here, because there are so many birds, and they do wake up at different times in the morning. So even if you do have, when I do have those long, nights where I don't sleep, and I try to pretend, and especially if I have to get up in the morning at a certain time, I try to pretend that I don't know what time it is. Unfortunately, the birds don't allow that, because there are different birds at different times, even before the sunrise. So you always kind of know what time it is. And it is just a beautiful, beautiful, part of life that I enjoy a lot, just playing with the birds, listening to their songs, watching them, just interacting them everywhere I go, and also in the garden. And I've been noticing recently there is another new level of intimacy with nature, and another new level of intimacy with the birds. It's like we've broken another barrier that was between us, and they are just allowing themselves to come so close. And I mean the wild ones. It is just they have completely lost the fear. And in this way, I always it makes me feel the feeling of being part of nature in this way. It's quite undescribable, because I don't feel separated from everything around me. I don't feel that separation from the world, from life around me. And it is a confirmation also of the work that we are doing, that actually it is working. So nature, I find, it's very, very quick to respond to everything that we are doing, to everything that I am doing, and how it interacts, how the life around me interacts with me. It's such a good sort of like a mirror or a confirmation. And also like it is those, it's kind of like a sign, or maybe perhaps that's not the right word, but it is just a wonderful, tangible proof for the mind that yes, what we are doing, what I am doing, it is working. And the more I go, the deeper I go into myself, the deeper I allow myself to experience my eternal self, myself as eternal self, the deeper all life interacts with me, and the more so-called mysteries I am privy to, like nature, as I said, things that I have seen, things that I have experienced, just the normal everyday things that life is doing that I had no idea that it was doing, that the intricacies, the, how shall I say, the depth of what animals are experiencing, or what birds are experiencing. Because before, when I felt separated, even though I was always connected with nature, but I still had this kind of image of nature as being undeveloped, as all of the creatures being, I don't know, what is it that people of the mind think, a little bit dumb, a little bit without any purpose. And yet in reality, they're extremely purposeful. They have their own knowledge, they have their own wisdom, and I can touch it and I can taste it, and it is absolutely amazing to interact in this way. So to everyone, I would suggest, if, I'm sure that we all are, but if you're not, that just to allow yourself to experience that. And I have sort of a theme, I have a bit of an inkling. Michael was downloading, the information all week. I start sort of having the interaction with this show normally a few days before, and you know, things happen in the energy of the world, and feeling what is happening, feeling into the mass consciousness what is going on, and then integrating what is going on. Today's theme is a little bit is to do with power and powerlessness, because this is just such a big, huge subject, and has been since all that is, all that was, the one separated itself into all the different sparks, and all of the different sparks, the unique individuals, have started interacting. And before, we probably, all of you are probably familiar with the story, with the overview of the story, that when these individuals started interacting, because each of us, each of our eternal self, didn't realize that now the mother and father are on the inside of us, and we have felt that we have lost that connection with the source. We have felt that we were on the outside of heaven, so to speak. We tried to extract energy from the outside sources. We tried to steal energy, and this age-old game, as we know, has been happening since before time, since before the earth was created. So in the last month or so, I have been feeling that the intensities of these energies wanting to resolve themselves have increased, and all of the things, all of the places inside of myself that have not been resolved in this way have come up for the resolution, have come up, you know, to be accepted deeper. Those parts have come to be integrated, to be released, to be set free. And it is in so many ways such a beautiful and amazing and magical journey, because as we are experiencing this, at the same time, you know, we are experiencing I experience such exquisite feelings of life, feelings of myself, feelings of wisdom. The feminine and the masculine, the maturity of them, the maturity of the divine feminine and masculine, who are no longer wounded, who have resolved all of these issues, who only need to be allowed, who need to be integrated into our daily life. And at the same time, the resistances have become, well, what it feels like have become stronger and stronger as well. And also I find that my tolerance of these things has just become so small, so little. I just do not have tolerance to tolerate the the imbalanced energies anymore. And I find that even, you know, including everybody else, that we have come to places where there are some games we just cannot play anymore. There are some things that we just cannot, some energies that are structured in the old ways, that we just say no. We just say no more of this. I am stepping out. And yet I find that when I do make that decision, and I say no, and I step out of that game, I am completely and totally supported. Throughout these last few months, the feelings of being supported, the underlying feelings of well-being, which used to fluctuate, which used to come and go, are now such a stable, how shall I say, presence, such a stable underlying place from which I am, from which I operate, from which all of this springs out, that I don't ever experience anymore that place where I feel lost. I do experience frustrations. I experience intensities of feelings. I'm experiencing the intensity of presence of all that I am, more and more and more. And that is not always pleasant. At the same time, it is underlined with these feelings of well-being. So it's quite a different place, and it's a different way of being. And it is, until you experience it, it could possibly even feel, you know, like if if I am trying to explain this to someone who hasn't experienced this, to someone who still lives in their mind, of course they cannot believe me because they have not experienced it. It is a fantasy. And yet the reality of being in this way is completely and utterly available now. Our reality, the life, the new earth is here. Life is ready for this. Life is able to work with this, to handle this. Perhaps 10 years ago it wasn't, because everything hasn't, all the energies, all of the structures haven't, the raw materials haven't fallen into place yet. But now it is. We can fully live in this new earth, which is here, present, now, just a breath away, or not. If we allow it in, it is real, present. And this has specifically come to my attention because in the last few days I was inspired to watch some of the YouTube videos on all the certain different issues that humanity in mass consciousness has been dealing with in the last couple of years. And there are so many things I haven't even been aware of. For example, the details, the stories. I've realized I have actually been living in a very, very, very different reality than the mass consciousness is now for quite some time. And it has been such a pleasant surprise, and again a confirmation to the mind of that, yes, what the journey that that we have embarked on a few years ago, that we have been on, all of the work that we have done, the integrations, everything has been worth it, because the reality now, my reality, is so different than the reality of mass consciousness, which still doesn't have any solutions. And with all of the things being disclosed, with all of the things coming out, unless the individual steps onto the journey that we've been on, there are no solutions, because they only have that closed loop, they only have that closed circle, where things, they come out and they go back into the same old, same old, same old. And yes, without this infusion of the eternal self, without the infusion of your own soul, of each of our own individual souls, there are no permanent solutions. We are the solution. And again, I would like to say how grateful I was to myself for having the courage to do this journey, to be this journey. And also I want to thank each and every one of you, to look in the mirror and say thank you for having the courage to be the solution, to be the template for all of the issues that the humanity is doing. And how amazing it was to really realize, for this to not be just a theory, but to realize that alongside, parallel to the mass consciousness, that I was in many ways dealing with very similar issues that they were dealing with in the last few years. And yet, in the way I was dealing with it, there was a resolution. There is a resolution, and all of the issues have resolved themselves. There is a solution to every single issue that is facing the mass consciousness, and we are a living, breathing solution. And I would like to again remind you to celebrate that fact, and I would like to allow this fact and this to permeate you, to be part of you, because it can give you confidence that is required. It can give you all of the feelings of maturity, the wisdom that people around you, people that have not ever experienced or perhaps even heard that there is another way, that they can feel this difference, they can feel this joy, they can feel this maturity and wisdom within you. And that can make a difference. Perhaps not right now, but it will plant the seeds for those that are ready, or perhaps will be ready soon. Okay, so I didn't realize this speech was going to be this long, so I would like to introduce myself. For those that are new, my name is Alex Sersha, and welcome to the Blueprints of the New, which is a monthly webinar that I have been running for about a year. And it is such a joy to be participating in this, and it is such a joy for Michael and Michaela to be participating in this as well. We're all looking forward to. And also the flowers. Some people sometimes ask me whether they are fake. No, they are real. In the names, normally I use heliconias and a variety of gingers. Some are from my garden and some, majority, I get at the market from this wonderful lady that grows them, that has a farm about an hour's drive away, and she grows them, all sorts of different kinds, and she exports them all over Australia, and some of them she also sells here to the local people. And it is just a wonderful part of preparing, getting ready for this show to be sort of organizing the flowers. And how interesting it is, this journey of ours, because every joy, every talent, and every wish perhaps that we have is utilized, is involved in this journey, is involved in our life. Because when I was growing up, for a while I wanted to be a florist. I wanted to be a lady that sells and puts bouquets together. And then I let that desire go, because of course life happened. And just the other day I realized, wow, I am doing so many of the things that in the past I thought, wow, this would be a beautiful thing to do. I am able to now actually live and incorporate in what I am doing now. And we are Michael and we are Michaela, and we greet you. We greet each and every one of you. And we greet all of our non-physical friends as well, of whom there are many that are present here today. And we greet you, masters that you are. And we celebrate you, and we celebrate your courage for the path that you have chosen, for the perseverance through all of those difficult times. And we encourage you to celebrate, because we have stepped into another level, we have stepped into another world, and we wouldn't be able to do this for the earth. We wouldn't be able to do this without you, because you are the ones that have made this possible. And what made this possible is your willingness to deal with whatever had to be dealt with, your willingness to integrate whatever had to be integrated. And you have found that the raw materials of your life is what your eternal self works with. And there is no need to change your life. There never has been any need to change your life. And what we mean by that, in a way, to take the raw materials of someone else, to take the raw materials of your neighbor, to take the raw materials of another place. The grass is greener on the other side truly does not work in this way, because your eternal self uses the raw materials of your own life, the experiences, your emotions, the feelings of your own life. And then you, the human, and you, the eternal self, create magic out of those raw materials of your life. And they change and they transform into something beautiful, into something divine. And then the more and more and more you realize that everything that you have done, everything that you have experienced, every emotion, every feeling is that raw material, is divine, is something that it is that material of life, is something that can be worked with, can be played with, can be developed, can be deepened, can be explored. And there are many things that in the past, or there are many things that perhaps some of you still find challenging, because the energy, the past lives, this life includes some of the very, very raw emotions. There are people that are dealing with very, very intense emotions. Perhaps they're dealing with the sexual abuses, and this is one of the biggest abuse of power, as you know. Perhaps you're dealing with all sorts of different betrayals, abandonments, pains. And it can be a challenge in when you have memories of those experiences to feel the trust. And yet it is these experiences that allow you, that bring you to this magical place of reunion, of integration between the human and self. So all of these, and sometimes it can be a challenge to feel that these kind of experiences that you've had, that many of you have had, or perhaps remember from past lives, because dear ones, each person, each individual has experienced this kind of gross abuses of power, has experiences the feelings of powerlessness, has also experienced the overpowering, being overpowering, being overbearing, because this is the nature of the old game. It is this hierarchical structures of being overpowering, of being more than the other, of putting people down, putting everyone down because of conquering. So these are the things these are the themes, these are the raw materials, these are the experiences, and a variety, and each and every one of you had a variety of different kinds of experiences with this, and some of them, they could possibly be in the past, not you would not be able to experience them because the intensity was too much. Because as you were a young person, perhaps a child, you had no abilities to experience these emotions. And yet now, because of the level of integration, of the level of the presence of your eternal self, of all of the other life, now being able to deal with, to handle with this kind of intensities of energies, it is time, dear ones, to allow all of these kind of things to come to the surface, to finally integrate, so that you can glean and so that you can have the wisdom of these experiences. Because you'll find that now, with the presence of eternal self, the edge, the fear, the mistrust of these experiences is not as intense. The actual feeling can be intense, the emotion can be intense, and yet it doesn't leave any pain, it doesn't leave any scars, it doesn't wound anymore. Because the presence of your eternal self is like oil. It oils every part of you. It enables you to allow these kind of intensities. It enables you to acknowledge these kind of experiences that you've had, because each one of you have had your own experiences with this feeling of being overpowering to others, and also feeling of being powerless. And these kind of feelings now are no longer scary to feel, because you realize, as you're feeling them, as you allow yourself to feel this being powerless, you realize that it was just an emotion, that it didn't have any, how shall we say, it is just energy in motion. It doesn't have any sharp edges anymore. It has intensities, but it's not wounding. So we would encourage every one of you that if these kind of feelings of power and overpowering, of powerlessness do come up, to sit with them, to play with them, to accept them, because these kind of emotions and feelings have been with you for a very, very long time. They have been with you, for lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes, in a variety of different expressions. And yet they do not have any space in the new earth. They do not have any role to play anymore in the new earth. And yet, so they do need to be released. They do need to be worked with. They do need to be allowed. They do need to be loved. Because all of the parts of you, whether it is the ones that you were not able to feel because they were too scary to feel in the past, it was very scary to feel powerless, because then anything could happen. Anything could happen to you. You felt out of control. You felt that, and not only felt, but you also have experienced what happens when you are powerless. And yet those experiences have made you who you are. Those experiences have added to the store of the wisdom that you have. It is all of those experiences that make you a very unique person, not only on earth, but in the whole of the universe, in the whole of the creation, because you have allowed yourself to really experience that, and to then not only experience it, but become conscious of it. Because when you allow consciousness into those emotions of powerlessness, and even the emotions of being overbearing, of being powerful, overpowering to others, which for some people perhaps are even more difficult to feel, because as being as that each of us have that history of being a light worker, of being the bringers of light, we at times do not want to look at the parts that were perhaps in the past, or in the past lives, or even in this life, playing at being overbearing to others. And yet, as we mentioned, these energies are now knocking on the door, and for some of you, you have already opened those doors, and you have been dealing with them, and you have been integrating with them. And yet there is another level, there is another depth to them, and they are calling you, these raw materials of your life, raw materials of your experiences. They are calling you to integrate them at the deeper level, to allow them, to love them finally, to accept them as part of what was, as part of the old game. And they no longer carry any sharpness, they no longer carry any power over you. They are no longer scary, they are no longer a big darkness, a big shadow, a big dragon, as what they used to be. And in this way, you will be able to even more be a standard to others, to show the way for all of those ones that have lost the hope, without you even having to do anything. It is not that everybody has to do all these workshops, or perhaps write blogs or anything. All you need to do is be present in your life, be present with people around you, be present in your community. And whether you travel or not, it you can do whatever you can do whatever makes your heart joyful. But you don't have to. You don't have to leave your community. You don't have to. There is no pre-prescribed way of how you should be, of what you should do, because just by being here, by choosing to continue with this journey, you are making a big difference. And we encourage you once again to celebrate your life, to celebrate you, to celebrate your wisdom, and to allow that feeling to come to you, to allow yourself to be that wise person, to be that wise elder, to feel that wisdom, that maturity, not only for yourself in your life, but to be the person, that kind of person, the wise person to others, to whom others can come and ask for advice, to whom others can come for solutions, to whom others can come, to find ways out. And perhaps they may not, perhaps you may need to change your language a bit. Perhaps you may not use the words that we use, because a lot of people of the mind, a lot of people that have never experienced anything that you have experienced, they will not understand the language. And yet many of them are starting to be ready to hear, to listen to what you have to say, because they see the sparkle in your eyes. They see the joy. They see that, they feel that there is something different. There's something different in you. This difference, they cannot quite put their fingers on it, and yet they know there is something different. They know, they can feel the joy, the happiness. this well-being, the wellspring of well-being, the solutions. And be open to people that will come, because they are starting to come, dear ones. There are those ones that perhaps they are very young even, perhaps they are any age, but they come to you. They come to you because they feel that you have the solution to them. So do not turn them away when they come. And do not use the language that they don't understand. You know, when you are talking to other people, when you are talking to people that are not used to these kind of words, or the intensities, that are not able to handle the intensities, perhaps, of you, of who you are, when you allow yourself to be very present in your life, you can be very intense. And yet you can change the volume, and it is not that you know, there is a stage and a time in your life where you do need that time to be by yourself, where you do need that time to be a bit of a rebel. You do need that time to allow yourself to not let anybody tell you what to do, to find where you're finding yourself, where you are choosing for yourself, where you are for the first time creating that sovereign space. And then comes a time where this sovereign space, your well-being, is so present, so solidified. And we don't mean that in a sense of unchangeability, but in a way that it is always available to you, that you operate out of this well-being space, where then you no longer have to worry about it, you no longer have to concentrate on that, and you can be flexible and fluid in this way, and you can change the volume when you are speaking to others. You don't have to, because you have nothing more to prove. You can be what you need to be, and you can allow yourself to be what you need to be in that moment, and play and dance with that person that has come to you for the advice. Because, dear ones, people are waking up. People are realizing that the old way is just not giving them any solutions. So now you will find that perhaps next year even more, there will be more and more and more people knocking on your door. There will be more people knocking on your door to find the solutions, to ask questions. What are you doing that you look so joyful? What are you doing that you feel so good? What are you doing? How can you be so happy when everything looks, when we look around, everything looks like it's falling apart? Because the intensities will continue. The weather changes, the disclosures, they will continue. And people find no more they don't find any comfort in anything else. They find that the old ways are just no longer working. And you are the new way, you are the solution to this. And then the next thing we would like to talk about is again the self-care, the self-loving. Because with the intensities that are happening, with things that are releasing, it is again so easy to forget to love yourself. So we would remind you to celebrate yourself, to love yourself, to allow everything that arises to come, that arises from within you or from outside of you, so that you can accept it and love it and integrate it and let it go. And you may find in your life, in the life around you, in the people around you, that some of them will try to battle with you, that some of them will try to, people that do not want to change, that choose not to change, that choose not to step into this new, it may appear as if it's a new level of people standing up to you and saying, no, I don't want that. Just to allow yourself to be okay with that, whether it is your family members, whether it is the strangers, whether it is people at your work. They will try to reassert because they feel that all of the structures are falling apart, and they may step up a notch of how they may want to, they may want to hold on to their power because they feel that it is all crumbling away. And what we remind you is just to remember to breathe. In those cases, there is nothing to do. And in other cases, when you feel that no more of this, I don't want to play with this, that you can walk away because you are supported. You are supported on your journey, and you are supported with every decision that you make to be in the new, to not to step out of the old. And you will be able to then be a standard for all of those around you as well, with it, because they are watching, whether you know it or not. They are watching what you do because, as we said, they know that there is something different about you. They see that you don't operate from fear. And now there is a new level of this. There is a new requirement that you completely step out of this fear, that you do not listen to its voice anymore, that you do not listen to its guidance anymore, that you can sort of perhaps feel it. Or sometimes you even forget about it. For some of you, you notice that, wow, fear, I even forgot what that feels like because I don't operate from this place. And for some of you that are still perhaps working with this fear, it is so encouraging to know that yes, there is life with no fear. And there is life of discourage. And it is an exhilarating life when you're making those steps out of fear, when you're making those steps that are not based in fear, that are not based in limitation, that are not based in disrespecting yourself. And when you are making those little choices or big choices within your daily life that 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 are based on respecting yourself, there is nothing like it, the feeling of doing that. And even if it is scary at first for those that are still dealing with the fear, you also feel and allow yourself to feel even more that exhilaration, all of those subtle and not so subtle feelings of freedom, of sovereignty. And we do know that many are dealing also with very challenging, what would appear to be very challenging situations in your life. Perhaps you're dealing with children, you're dealing with your loved ones, there are so many different issues, so many different challenges that you are dealing with. Perhaps you're dealing with things at work. And we would like to encourage you to remember that you are loved. You are loved. And would like to encourage you and would like to remind you that the solution to all of it is very simple. The simplicity of being. It is allowing more love. Because with the allowance of more love, you allow more of your eternal self in. And your eternal self has solution, brings the solutions, brings space, brings potentials, brings all of the things that you perhaps think you are lacking. And there comes a day when the lack, that there is the step is made where you step out of operating from lack and you start operating from that well of well-being, where everything is possible. And let's do a little experience right now. Let's allow ourselves to feel that, how everything is possible, how there is this exuberance, this joy of life. Just breathe it in, breathe her in, the feminine, the uncompromising one, the wild one. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances of your life are. When the circumstances of your life, or perhaps things that trouble you, come up, those thoughts, those feelings, just allow them to be. And yet, parallel to that, allow yourself to feel into that joy of living. What would it feel like to you? What does it feel like to you when joy dances with every cell of your body? When wisdom dances with every cell of your body? When you work from that space, when you work from that place of feeling, where all of the issues that you have in your life are solvable, are small, because you are that I am, because you are that eternal self, the one that has been forever and will be forever and is. What does it feel like when the biggest issue, the biggest fear, that looks so unresolvable, that looks perhaps so scary, so painful. What does it feel like when it is resolved, when it is small? When you can allow it just to be, when you can allow it to come to you, and you can honor all of the feelings that it brings to you. And when you allow yourself to feel those, and they're no longer overwhelming because you are bigger than all of them. And you are not bigger in a way that is overwhelming and overbearing to all of these parts. You just are. You are allowing. You are vulnerable. Because from this place of well-being, from this place of eternity, from this place of eternal self, you can allow yourself to be completely vulnerable. And for some of you, perhaps you have never experienced these feelings of vulnerability. Because what you have been used to is you have equated these feelings of vulnerability with being powerless. But once you allow yourself to feel these things, you will become very proficient at realizing that vulnerability and powerlessness are very, very different things. And you will realize that allowing the uncomfortable feelings is just part of a new way of feeling. When you allow yourself, when you first call your eternal self to be with you and allow eternal self to be inside your body, then when these feelings of powerlessness come, they do not feel very uncomfortable. They just feel part of you. They are energy in motion. They're not scary. They're not even that uncomfortable to feel. Because all that you as a human used to think uncomfortable are it's just energy in motion. And with the help, with the assistance, with the presence of consciousness, with the presence of your eternal self, and the compassion, and the allowance, and the self-love, all of these difficult, challenging emotions are no longer so. There is a preference. You always can have a preference to what you want to experience, to what you want to feel. And all of the different experiences do carry certain emotions, certain feelings with them. So, and some of them you will prefer, and some of them you will prefer a little bit less. But there is no emotion, there is nothing that can overpower you, that overcome you. Because as you cultivate this presence of your eternal self within yourself, and as you cultivate this ability to feel vulnerable, to feel gentle, to feel exuberant, just like the flowers that are just are who they are, regardless of what happens, regardless of what is around them. When you start feeling and you allow yourself to feel those feelings, then you can allow any emotions that were perhaps challenging in the past to be in that presence, to be with you, and they won't bother you. They won't look like monsters that they used to look like. But they will be old friends. You will realize that they have journeyed with you, and they have journeyed with your soul in all your past lives. They have journeyed with you through the densities of the 3D, through the densities of duality. They have been around you for a very, very long time, and you can greet them as these old friends. And yet there is this determination within you that they are no longer scary, they are no longer overpowering to you. And as you deal with all of these issues of power and powerlessness within you, you will find that you will be not affected as much when mass consciousness is dealing with them, or perhaps when someone outside of you is wanting to overpower you, because they won't be able to, because you no longer will have anything within you from which they can play, from which they can hook into you. And it is the most wonderful feeling, this vulnerability. It is the most wonderful way of being, because you allow the presence of your eternal self to be with you in every situation. And you will find that the presence of your eternal self also fluctuates. It is not always as intense. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And the volume goes up and down, and it is just a part of a natural way of being. So do not be quick when you don't feel as strongly the presence of your eternal self. Do not be quick to start doubting. Do not be quick to go into those spaces anymore. As a matter of fact, don't allow yourself to go into the spaces of doubt anymore, because this doesn't have any more place in this new energy, in this new way, in this new reality that we are in now. The doubt, the fear, they are no longer fun to play with, and it is now easier than it ever has been. And it doesn't matter what the situation of your life is. It doesn't matter whether the mind feels overwhelmed with things that you have to deal with within your life. You can choose that at any time. You can step out when the fear comes. You can step out of the doubt. And instead, you can operate, you can be, you can allow trust to be part of your body. You can allow trust to play with your cells, the cells of your body. You can make all this fun. It doesn't have to be serious. Have fun, dear ones, because this is what life is about. Enjoy. Enjoy even this work. Enjoy dealing with the challenging emotions. How does it look? How does it feel? How does your life? How does your day? How do your daily things that you have to do, things that you have to deal with, how do they look like when you look at them through the eyes of joy, through the eyes of love? Because it almost feels like sacrilege, because you are taught to be serious. You are taught that some things only have to be looked at through the serious eyes, because otherwise you are not responsible. And yet none of those rules apply anymore. You can let go of any of those things, and you can embrace this joy. You can embrace all of these subtle different feelings that you want to feel, that you want to experience. And you don't have to wait for any of your circumstances to change. You can feel this joy, you can feel this wisdom, you can feel this part of you. You can be this part of you, you can embody this part of you that is wisdom, that is joy, that is vulnerable, that is gentle. And it is safe, dear ones, it is safe to feel that. And if you do still experience feelings of unsafety, then this feeling of safety is what you need to allow in. So what would it feel like? What does safety feel in your life? And feel it throughout those experiences that perhaps feel unsafe during your day. What if you chose to step out of the feeling of unsafety? And what if you became safety instead? Regardless of what happens, even if the circumstances of your life haven't changed, what if you did feel? How does it feel to feel safe? How does that particular issue look like when you are feeling safe, when you look at it through the eyes of safety? Because this is within your ability to do. As a master, you can feel however you want to feel. And as you're radiating your feelings through the circumstances of your life, cannot help but change. Then the circumstances of your life start reflecting who you are, this new feeling, the new way of being. And you can choose whatever it is that is appropriate for your life, and you can practice this. And when you find yourself in the old feelings, in the old emotions, and when you find yourself that the emotions that have to be released in order for you to exist in these new feelings, you can just remind yourself that even this shall pass. And you remind yourself just to keep feeling, and do not allow yourself to be distracted to step back into the old. And when you do find yourself that you have stepped back into the old, use humor, dear ones. Use joy. Be this most wonderful being to yourself that you wanted other people to be. Be joyful to yourself. Be fun to yourself. So whatever happens in your daily life, deal with it in a joyful manner. Deal with it with acceptance. Deal with it with self-love. Be gentle to yourself, regardless of what happens. Instead of being belittled, putting yourself down, or be strict, or use any of those old ways of dealing with yourself. If you think you made a mistake, if you've gone back into the old patterns, regardless of what, deal with them in a new way. Deal with them with joy, with acceptance, with love. Deal with all of those things in yourself the way that you would want the most wonderful parents to deal with them, the most wonderful mother and father of your dreams to deal with them. And as you do this, and as you start experiencing these, you will find that you become more and more proficient in even more and more feelings like this that you perhaps don't even have the name. And then working in this way, dealing with yourself in this way becomes automatic, regardless of what happens, regardless of what feelings and emotions arise within you or arise within your day. You can look at them through the eyes of love. You look at them through the eyes of acceptance. You look at them through the eyes of benevolence. Because, dear ones, there is no more space for harshness within you. And that is where the change happens. Because, as you know, as inside, so outside. So as you are dealing with yourself in this soft way, in the gentle way, in the vulnerable way, and then your world reflects that, your life around you reflects that. And you do go through the period where everything is adjusting. And it is even in that period even more important to use this new habit now, to go to the gentleness, to go to the acceptance, to go to the self-love. Whatever happens, whatever arises within you, there is nothing beyond your eternal self. There is nothing that your eternal self doesn't accept. There is nothing that any part of you has done or has felt or has experienced that will be judged by eternal self. Eternal self accepts it all, regardless of how the mind judges it. And it is that time to step out of all of these judgments and to accept everything that arises within you, to accept everything of who you are. And in this way, it works together. As you, as a human, are more accepting, you create space for more of your eternal self to be present in your life, in the spaces of your day, in the spaces of your being. And the more of your eternal self is present, the more of your consciousness is present, then every part of your day, every part of the raw material of your day, of your life, becomes enlightened, becomes infused with consciousness, becomes infused with eternal self. And the eternal self does not judge, but accepts every single thing, every single feeling, every single emotion that is you, that is the raw material of you. And all of that changes and becomes a wisdom, like nectar that you collect deep within yourself, and from which then you can draw this wisdom, that you can draw and become this mature, wise being that you are. And in this process, you become so appreciative of all experiences, even the ones that perhaps today you judge, and you ask yourself, why have I given myself? Why have I experienced this? Because it perhaps has made your journey so painful, so difficult. And then you come into this space where you are so grateful for every single experience that you've had. You are so grateful even for what you used to perceive to be the most painful experiences. And yet they are your raw materials They are divine. They become divine when they are infused with the consciousness of your being. They are sacred, and you are sacred, and everything about you becomes sacred and valued and important. There is nothing in your day, there is nothing in your life that is outside of this ability of your eternal self, that is outside of this ability of you to infuse, to make conscious. And this work, this infusion, there is just so much raw joy in this. There is just so much satisfaction and so many different kind of feelings in this way, emotions and experiences. So very often people can think that when you are doing this kind of work of the depth of your being, that it is quite uncomfortable. And yes, it is at times. And yet with all of that, there is magic. There is nothing like finding out who you are. There is nothing like becoming. There is nothing like infusing consciousness and becoming more and more into all directions, into the depth, into the width of you. The feelings that you experience with this are quite undescribable until you experience them. And it is this that give you the ability to do more and more and more, because you are not ever a finished product. And every feeling, every emotion has nuances, has new depth. And this is the joy of your eternal self, this exploration, this diving deep and deep and deep into everything. And you will find that unlike the human, unlike what you were used to, the eternal self doesn't have any, how shall we say, it often doesn't even have any preferences as to what it wants to experience, because it doesn't have the judgments. It only has wisdom. It doesn't judge something as bad, because it knows that that something is also part of itself. There is nothing of yourself that is outside of your eternal self. And therefore, it's just a particular form that exists in that time and space, and that will change. That form will change. That form will develop. That form will become wise. Will become like nectar, sweet and deep and juicy and enjoyable. And this is what your day, your everyday is. It is this nectar. It is the raw materials that with the infusion of your eternal self become nectar. They turn into this wisdom. Every single part, every single thing you do, every single thing you feel, every emotion is the raw material. And we encourage you to look at your day in this way, and we encourage you to look at all of your issues in this way, because in this way, then you start operating, and you operate from a very, very different place. Because how does it feel, dear ones, to wake up into your day, to open your eyes with this feeling that everything that happens in that day of yours, everything that you experience in that day of yours is divine, can be wise, can be like nectar. It is, and so in this way, this is new earth. This is new earth within you. When you do experience your day, when you live and you experience life from this space of everything being divine, of everything being sacred, and you are in new earth in this way. And not only you are in new earth, you are new earth. Okay, and dear ones, I think we have time now to have some questions. We're bringing Alex back so she can do this technology. And let's have a look. Oh, maybe some coffee. I'll have some coffee. Enjoy my coffee. I haven't mentioned before, for those people that are new, you can submit the questions. There is a Q&A panel on your screen, on the bottom of your screen, I think on the left side. If you have any questions, I will have a look if we do have any questions. We have no questions so far. So we will give some time for people to submit some questions if they have any. But we would just like to say, I would just like to say that, yes, it is amazing times that we live in. And we are amazing people, and we are amazing creation, and we have entered into such a satisfying way of being that is here, that needs to be just acknowledged, integrated, and allowed. All right, I will have a look again if we have any questions. Nope, no questions. So I would like to say thank you again for everybody that has attended. I think next month on my date, the 11th of November, there will be a 1 hour's workshop. And I think in most of the rest of the world, it will be on the 10th of November, the weekend of the 10th, 11th of November. And it will be about, the workshop will be Trust Matters. So it will be the exploration of the trust, because this is one of those big issues that perhaps some people are finding challenges with, especially people who have had a very, especially in this life, very serious, perhaps, have dealt with some serious betrayals, serious issues that can sometimes, be a blockage or prevent from that trust to develop. Because how do you trust when you don't trust? So that will be a workshop on the exploration of trust. I think it's $25, and then afterwards the recording will be available on my website for $15 afterwards. So it's about 3 months access to the recording. So anybody, you're welcome to join, to join that workshop, and there will be many more coming. With Michael, he would just like to do all sorts of different workshops and things, because there's always things to work on. And she gets so excited about, they get so excited about all of the things that we are doing, and they get so excited about being part of this world. They get so excited to be allowed into our daily life, into, like we talked about, raw materials of our everyday's life. And there is nothing that they don't want to be part of. There is nothing that they don't want to, that the eternal self doesn't want to dive deep and transform and transmute and infuse with consciousness, and then experience it in a deeper and deeper and deeper way. So with that, we have a couple of questions. Okay. It is just someone saying, woohoo, very apropos talk. Thank you very much. And we thank again everybody that has participated today. And until next time, we say goodbye through this medium, but we and your eternal self, we are always present. Thank you. Bye-bye.